All right. So, hi both. I think somebody dropped out. Okay. Uh, Let me just start with this. We are going to follow the same approach. We're going to solve questions, and throughout the questions, we will solve our conceptual queries wherever necessary. So, first question itself, it reads, Mr. Chandru, if you remember, this is the first question solved in the class also. Very simple question. Mr. Chandru is a manufacturer of soaps and detergent. He sells 1,000 carton boxes of soaps to a wholesaler at his premises in the same state. So the first one is same state only. Very simple. If it is same state, we'll have CGST and SGST.
Yeah.
For 2 lakhs, so the value of the transaction is already given. Incurs a packing charges of 10,000, transportation charges of 5,000, insurance of 1,000. Calculate the value of the taxable supply and GST payable if the applicable rate of CGST is 9% and SGST is 9%. What will the situation be if he supplies the same to a wholesaler of other state? So the question is asking also for other state, in which case we will incur IGST, not CGST. Yes. And IGST will be nothing but your total of the CGST and SGST percentages. We already know that. Coming back to the question, when the values of these kind of services is provided separately, so the transaction price is 2 lakhs, then we have something called packing charges, transport charges, insurance, everything will be added for GST purpose. So we calculate the value of the supply, and in order to calculate value of the supply, everything that is given along with the principal supply, value of that is being added to our original value, and we calculate the value of the supply accordingly. So if you see here, 2 lakhs plus 10,000 plus 5,000 plus 1,000, that comes to 2,16,000 is our value of supply. That is what is being asked in this question. So please make sure that we are highlighting that. Like I have done it here, 2,16,000. Obviously, the presentation will be according to you. These are just rough calculations. So do ensure to highlight that, because that is what is being asked in the question. So it says very clearly, calculate the value of the taxable supply and GST payable. GST payable is how much? 9% of that is CGST, 9% of that is SGST, which comes to 38,880 is our GST payable.
GST.
Any questions thus far?
So no. If we go, so let's say any question, I'm not talking to this particular, here we have 3 transactions, right?
Correct.
So now whenever any question comes, so very basic question comes in always GST liability, right? Tax liability.
Correct.
So in tax liability, so we need to add the GST on the first transaction, and then we have to add the GST of second transaction and the third transaction. Do we need to compensate that the GST which has been applied on a very first level, or that will go on a second separate calculation whenever we will be doing output tax and input tax?
Do you mean when one person is selling to somebody else is selling to somebody else? That scenario that you are talking about?
Correct. So let's say this question itself, we do have, so if it is asking the total GST liability, right? If total GST liability is obviously whatever the GST has been paid by Mr. Chandru, that will be deducted in the next transaction, right? So he will be paying only, so the final GST liability will be the total liability, input tax minus output tax, correct?
Correct.
But here I think he is asking GST payable. So I'm a bit confused. In what case we just need to calculate the GST at all 3 levels? So where do we need to do that minus wala calculation?
Okay. So actually the next question is that scenario only. So I'll point this out once more, but the answer to your question is, if you notice here, who is selling to Chandru or Chandru is selling to whom? Nothing is mentioned about that. Right now, now the other person or the person before Chandru, what price they're selling, what price they're purchasing, information is missing there. So because of which, when only information about Mr. Chandru is provided in the question, we will calculate everything for Mr. Chandru. When we'll go to the next question, you will see it will specifically ask for all those persons involved in different how do you say sphere of the trade, and it will ask for the GST payable by each of them, and for each of them the information will be given separately.
All right. So basically here we have taken the total amount first. So basically the premises is same for estate 2 lakh rupees.
Correct.
The packaging charges is 10,000, transportation charges 5,000, insurance is 1,000. So we did all the calculation. It came 2,16,000, and we simply applied the 9% CGST, 9% SGST, and then total 38,880 rupees is the my payable GST, and that's all the solution done.
Yes, that's
All
the
right.
that's the
It's
solution
simple.
only other thing is the last sentence of the question says, what will the situation be if he supplies the same to a wholesaler of the other state?
So instead of CGST and GST, we will put IGST, which will be 18%.
Perfect. So that's what is the solution actually. Now that we have covered the whole question, very simple question. So let me just.
So basically, we have to do two calculation in such case. So first calculation we will be doing with CGST and GST. Second, we will be putting the note considering the supply is in other state. Hence, IGST will be applied, and then we will put the IGST calculation at the total amount. Or do we need to put all the steps again, doing plus, or can we just simply do a calculation total amount at the rate IGST 18% and do the calculation?
So presentation varies from teacher to teacher. Some teacher might have been okay with what you were saying, but he has made sure that he needs the whole calculation once again. So please repeat whatever you have done in the first one. Yeah. And only the IGST part you change and you calculate accordingly.
Right.
Yeah. So very quickly, this is the same question. So I'm talking about this one. I've just modified the numbers a bit. So you have 2,000 cartons now. 2,50,000 is the what do you say premises in the same state. 2,50,000. 12,000 is the packing charges. 6,000 is the transportation charges. 1,500 is the insurance, and our GST rate is 5%. CGST 5% SGST. So IGST becomes 10%. Can you please tell me very quickly what is the supply taxable value of the supply and what is the GST payable?
Okay, tell me one thing. This 10,000 carton does not mean, because he has already given the total value of soaps and detergent, right?
Correct. It is not relevant, right? That's what you're saying.
Yeah, yes, it's not relevant, right?
It's
if he is giving the value of per carton box, then it matters. We have to calculate the total value of.
Yes, absolutely. That is not relevant.
Yeah.
Quickly, somebody.
Total charge is 2,75,000.
2,75,000. No, that's incorrect.
No, you said 5%, 5%, right?
Yeah.
No, total value is 2,50,000 you have increased, and then what is the packing charge is 12,000. Transportation.
Okay, you charges you had written. Okay, I thought it's the same.
And then 1,500 rupees you put for that. Okay.
So as you can see, very simple question, but still we make silly mistakes here and there. So please be careful of that.
The total amount is 2,69,500.
Perfect. Yes.
Now I have to do the 5% of this.
So please calculate CGST separately and IGST, SGST, and then a separate whole calculation for IGST also. You don't have to do the whole thing now. I mean, just do the calculation. That's fine. But when you are doing in the exam, obviously follow the structure and
So CGST and IGST 13,475,
perfect. Yes.
and then total IGST in interstate will be 26,950.
Perfect. That is correct answer. Do we have any questions? Anybody stuck at any point? Very simple question.
Dheeraj, if
I just have a
IGST,
small question.
go ahead, go ahead.
No, this in that question is saying that we are selling this to a wholesaler.
Correct, correct.
So GST will be paying by wholesaler, right?
What will be paid by wholesaler? Sorry.
GST, I mean the tax payable.
Okay,
that should
okay,
be
okay.
paid by
GST will be paid by
wholesaler, right?
wholesaler.
Once he is
Yes, possible. Yes, possible. No, see, I think your question is hovering around the same thing that
basically,
Saurabh was asking.
GST will be paid by buyer. Whoever is buying the good, he will pay the GST,
No, no,
whether
no,
it is wholesaler, dealer, or end user retailer, right?
no. What Vipin is asking is this, I believe. I think you were Saurabh was asking the same, almost similar question a little earlier. So what about the tax that is to be paid by wholesaler? That's what you're asking, right, Vipin?
yeah.
So what happens is, if you notice actually, how much of tax the wholesaler will pay depends on how much money the wholesaler is actually selling it for, right? Am I right? And that
Yeah.
information is not given in the question.
Okay.
Whatever.
But it's clearly mentioned that he is selling this to wholesaler, right?
No. This person, Mr. Chandru, is selling to the wholesaler. So this price that we have calculated, 2,69,000 in this example, is whose price? Is Chandru's price or wholesaler's price? Selling price, I'm saying.
Price only. Yeah.
Selling price, I'm saying. So it is selling price of Mr. Chandru. So that is the purchase price of Mr. Wholesaler.
Yeah.
But the selling price of Mr. Wholesaler is not provided.
Yeah.
So as information is not given, we will not be taking it. And same question can be asked for Mr. Chandru who has purchased this from somebody else.
Yeah.
Right? His taxes also we are not calculating.
Yeah.
Because we don't know for how much money he has calculated, he has purchased it for.
Okay. Right? So my question is, like, in both the cases, the calculation will be the same, right?
In both the cases, calculation will be same. Had the selling price been given for wholesaler also, had the selling price for wholesaler would have been given, calculation would have been exactly same. Yeah.
Okay, fine. That's the doubt. Yeah.
Perfect. Sami, you are asking something, no?
If IGST is given, the changes will get changed, right? Now we see only CGST and SGST is given. If IGST is also given the same question, so further we need to do some more calculation, right?
No.
If we, in case of other
IGST is the total of CGST plus SGST always.
No. If you are doing interstate sales, right, then IGST is going to get applied. There is another context, right? What will be the situation if the supply is the same to a wholesaler of the other state? So it is same like CGST plus GST, integrated GST. But if they had given some other number instead of 18%, we can assume, okay, 9 plus 9% is 18%. If they had given like 20%, then we have to use 20% or we have to use 18%.
That's not possible, right? No. IGST is the total of SGST and CGST.
Correct.
Yeah.
Hypothetically.
Correct. Hypothetically, you go without whatever the number is mentioned.
Yeah. Normally that won't be the case, I mean, because every time IGST will always be equal to CGST plus SGST. Total of CGST.
Yeah, sir also mentioned. Sir also mentioned in one of these notes.
So everything will remain same. Only the calculation of the tax will change in case of IGST. We're just taking that singular rate and multiplying it with the taxable value of the supply. Yeah. Okay. And any more questions?
And IGST is only applicable when we interstate sales comes into picture.
No, only interstate. Only interstate. Yes,
Hmm.
only interstate.
Got it.
Okay. Quickly moving to the next question. So here is the question. Mr. Naveen, a dealer from Mysore, buys a product at 20,000. He pays 6% SGST, 6% CGST to the supplier. He further sells it to Mr. Anand, a registered dealer in Raichur, for 25,000 and collects GST accordingly. So as you can see, let's stop here and calculate whatever tax is being paid by Mr. Naveen, then including, considering the input tax that is available to him. And if you look at it, both the purchase and sell are intrastate only, within state only. So in both purchase and sell, SGST and CGST will apply. So 20,000, sorry, output sell output supply was 25,000. As you can see, Mr. Anand, a registered dealer in Raichur, for 25,000. So 25,000 multiplied by 6% comes to 1,500. Yeah. So that is our output CGST and SGST liabilities. His input tax will be calculated on 20,000, right? Everybody agrees with me? Because his buying price is how much? 20,000. 20,000 into 6% accordingly comes to 1,200 and 1,200. That comes to 2,400. So when you deduct 2,400 from 3,000, that comes to net GST payable is 600. That 600 is 300 SGST, 300 CGST. Questions,
Okay,
please.
so here I was having a bit confusion. So basically, whatever the price he sold,
Yeah,
on top that GST will be considered as output GST.
correct.
And whatever the price he purchased and whatever the GST he has paid during the purchase, that is a input GST.
Correct. Perfect. Yes.
So that output GST usually will be higher than input GST,
It'll
because
always
obviously
be,
he will be selling.
yeah, it'll always be higher. Yeah.
So then GST net GST payable will be output minus input in always case, right?
Output minus input. Yes, perfect. Yes.
Hmm.
So one thing, just have one bit of how do you say, attention, that here we had output GST of CGST and SGST, input GST of CGST and SGST. So while deducting, there was no issue. We simply deducted CGST from CGST, SGST from SGST. So 1,500 minus 1,200, 300, 1,500 minus 1,200, 300. Total comes to 600. Any questions, please? Okay. So moving forward with the question, further Mr. Anand sells the same to Mr. Lalchand in Nagpur, Maharashtra for 35,000 and charges GST and charges GST. Let's stop here. So next transaction is selling it to Mr. Lalchand. As you can see, this is interstate now. Interstate means the output GST will be what? IGST, right?
IGST. Yeah,
Output
12%.
GST will be now IGST. So on 35,000, IGST rate is 12%, which is nothing but 6% plus 6%. Now that comes to 4,200. Now, what is the input GST for Mr. Anand? Can somebody tell?
6% multiplied by 40,000, right? 25,000.
Mr. Anand
25,000.
input will be the
25,000.
same, no?
No, 25,000.
3,000.
25,000 is the receiver there. You can see that from Raichur, Anand belongs to Raichur, and he is like getting at 25,000 from Mr. Naveen. So input GST will be 25,000 multiplied by 6%.
That comes to?
I think 1,500, total 3,000, but it will split between CGST and GST.
Perfect. So 1,500 CGST, 1,500 SGST, that total comes to 3,000. Everybody agrees to this? Any questions on this? Okay. Now here is the concept. Okay. Now you have IGST as output GST liability, and you have input credit of CGST and SGST. Now what happens is, logically, if you go to the market, if you look at the law right now, both CGST input and SGST input can be adjusted against the IGST output liability. But what sir has been following in the class is that the CGST liability, sorry, CGST input can be adjusted against IGST output liability, but SGST cannot be. So when we have IGST, suppose we'll make a small table of output and then input. Suppose output is IGST, input is IGST. Okay, we can adjust. Suppose output is IGST, input is CGST. This is also okay. Suppose output is IGST, but input is SGST. That is not okay.
No, but we discussed, no, like IGST, first it will be adjusted with CGST. If still some amount is left, then we can adjust with SGST.
So this is where I wanted to make sure that the confusion does not happen. Okay. So when we are talking about output is IGST and input are all these are the formula. Just look at this. Okay. Look at this chart. Suppose you have CGST and SGST as output. Suppose you have CGST and SGST as output, and you have IGST as input. This is also okay. But the only change is first CGST, rest with SGST. So this is the concept that you are referring to, which is a whole different scenario, where you have CGST, SGST as output liability, and you have input as IGST. So the only exception is this one.
So basically, if we are having excess CGST, IGST, I can pay IGST. But if I have excess IGST with me, I cannot pay SGST.
No, you said other way around. So you said, okay, just now you said when you have excess IGST, right?
I cannot pay SGST. That's what I said, no?
You can, no?
That is what I said actually.
You can,
if
no?
I have
Fine.
excess.
If you have excess
is
IGST,
what? Output is excess money, right? Whatever the output is, right?
No,
input is what I'm supposed to pay.
No. Output is output tax liability. So on the sell part. So this part.
Okay. Output is what I have to pay. Input is I have already paid.
You have
No,
already
input
paid,
is on purchase. Input is on purchase.
Yes.
Yeah. So input I have already paid. Now output I'm supposed to pay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, that's right.
See, Saurabh, output is always applicable on the sales part, and input is available on the input tax credit. You know ITC, right? And input tax credit is available only on purchases, like credit on your tax when you are purchasing something from some vendor or a supplier. Correct me.
Correct. I got it. There was a confusion. I got it.
And in summary, IGST is something like integrated, right? So if it is the reason why Dheeraj is saying like it has to always go to CGST is because when the interstate sales happens, right, it is very difficult to park to which state the tax has to be like what is a liable. So in that case, what they are saying, better make it central government rather than like getting into confusion whether I have to pay it to the Maharashtra state or Karnataka state. We'll pay it to central government. So that is the reason sir has said that if there is a IGST output, then you pay back to in like CGST input rather than paying on SGST or state government. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is that my understanding correct?
If there is any balance in this IGST, you can still pay SGST also.
Yeah. It will carry forward, right? That's what.
No, not carry forward. No. IGST input if you have, first you pay CGST. If you have
Hmm.
balance IGST,
Hmm.
you can pay SGST also.
Okay.
Okay. Now
Hmm.
is that clear? Any questions, please?
Dheeraj,
Yes, please.
I try to remember it in this way. Let me know if this is fine.
Yeah.
So I try to remember it as the center, I mean, the state would not like to give away its taxes to the center. So whatever is for the center, that can be offset with center's taxes only. Like IGST can be offset with either IGST or CGST. But states one, which is SGST, that we will not give to the center. However, if we have excess of IGST input credit, that can be set off with the SGST also.
Yes,
Other way
yes.
around is still possible.
Perfect.
Okay.
That however part I was a little worried about. Good thing you covered that. Yeah. so good enough. Yes, perfect.
Okay.
That is absolutely good way to remember. If you want to remember through this small table, that is also fine. In your own way, absolutely fine. Let me just revise the whole concept once again for everybody. So when you have output IGST, input IGST, no problem in adjustment. When you have output IGST, input CGST, no problem in adjustment. When you have output CGST or SGST and input IGST, no problem in adjustment. It's just that first you go for CGST, then you balance, if any, go for SGST. The only case in which we have a no case is where you have output IGST but input SGST. Input is state. Yes? Okay. Any questions, please? Okay. Let's move forward now. As you can see here, we had for Mr. Anand, we had IGST of 4200, IGST of 4200. He had input credit of CGST and SGST of 1500. So as you can see, first 1500 CGST falls into this category. So we have output liability of IGST and input credit of CGST. So that can be adjusted. Yes. But the second one, SGST, falls into this category. It cannot be adjusted. So we'll be able to deduct only 1500 from 4200. That comes to our GST liability of 2700. So if you see the notes that sir has done for this question specifically, as this question was very beginning question, no, he has not introduced this concept. He has deducted both 1500 and 1500 from 4200. Please do not get confused. Okay, so but we'll follow this concept because he has very clearly said that we'll be following this. He has done this in the rest of the questions and more advanced questions after this. He has followed this concept, so we'll be doing that only. So our output liability for Mr. Anand is final net liability, GST liability is 2700. So moving forward very quickly, and final Mr. Lalchand sells the product to final consumer in Maharashtra for 40,000. So now we know the GST liability of Mr. Lalchand will be based on the value of 40,000. Now, as it is in the same state, because the final consumer is also in Maharashtra, Mr. Lalchand is also in Maharashtra. So our liability will be CGST and SGST now. Yes, comes to 40,000 into 6%, 2,400 and 2,400. Total comes to 4,800. Mr. Lalchand's input liability is what? CGST, SGST or IGST? Can somebody tell?
CGST, right?
Yes, IGST.
No. Within the state, right? So IGST one comes into picture. So,
okay. Any other answers?
Lalchand is like selling the goods within the state, right? Maharashtra.
Is my question clear? What I'm trying to ask is, what is the input liability nature for Mr. Lalchand? Input liability nature
It's
for Mr.
interstate.
Lalchand.
That's IGST.
Yeah.
That's
IGST only.
IGST.
Yes,
Yeah.
perfect. It is IGST only, which is nothing but what was the Mr. Anand's output liability is the input liability, input credit for Mr. Lalchand, which is 4,200. Can you tell me which category this is falling into? If we call it as 1, 2, 3, 4, which category is this?
It's fourth category.
This is the fourth category. Everybody agrees to this? Yes? Any questions? Okay. Now that we know what is the category, what is the input liability, what is the output liability, tell me the balance is 600. Simply deduct 4200 from 4800, that is 600. Tell me this 600 is CGST, SGST or IGST. My question, I'll repeat it. This 600 liability for Mr. Lalchand, net liability, is CGST, IGST or SGST?
That's SGST, because the remaining one will be SGST.
Perfect. Others, please answer.
Yeah, that's correct. Dheeraj.
Yeah.
600, entire 600 will go to state.
So yes, the logic of first CGST rest SGST comes into picture here. Now out of 4800, that is 2400 output liability of CGST and 2400. So out of 4200 input liability, first 2400 will go for CGST, knock off CGST. So when we deduct 2400 from 4200, that comes to 1800 now will be adjusted against CGST liability of 2400. The balance left of 600 of SGST liability will be the net GST liability. So whatever balance that we have, it is SGST liability only. Make sense? Any questions, please?
No, I'm confused.
You're
Can
confused.
you help me? Can we put 3 column here like SGST,
I was
CGST,
about
and
to. I was
IGST?
about to do that only. I was about to do that only. Okay. So we do not need 3 columns. We just need 2 columns. One is CGST. Another one is SGST. Tell me the output liability for Mr. Lalchand. CGST how much?
No, let's go with Naveen only, no?
No. Forget about
Starting.
Naveen. No. Forget about Naveen. Forget about Naveen. We are talking about Lalchand now. You are getting confused here only, right?
No, here so I'm clear. For Lal Chand, he has sold his 40,000 rupee
Okay.
sell value. So
Okay.
he got 4,800 rupees as a output GST.
Correct.
And he has purchased from Mr. Anand, that was a intra-state. So IGST he has 4,200.
Correct.
So now, this 4,800 is divided into 2, SGST and CGST, right? So
Correct, correct.
2,400 and 2,400.
Correct.
So now output GST 2,400 will be compensated with 4,200, correct?
Correct. Mhm.
So 4,200 minus 2,400 will be
1800.
1,800. Right. So he is still pay. So it SGST. No, sorry, I don't know. So IGST he has to pay 1,800 still, right?
No. He still has to pay SGST 2400.
SGST he has to pay 2,400. Okay. IGST he will remain with the 1,800 credit.
So you have 2400 SGST liability, 1800 is your credit as of now. When you deduct, how much is still payable?
How much is still payable? Full SGST payable. Now we cannot compensate IGST with SGST. Right?
No. This is falling into this category. If you notice, input is IGST, output is CGST, SGST.
Then 600.
600, right? Whatever balance 600 is actually CGST, so SGST, sorry. SGST only, not CGST. Huh?
Correct. So input IGST I have output SGST is coming here. That's why it is in fourth category. Got it.
Correct. Makes sense? And any other questions, please? Okay. A small, how do you say, presentation change, just to make that clarity. Suppose we have CGST and SGST for Mr. Lalchand. Output liability is nothing but this is 2400 and 2400. So we have input credit of 4200. Out of this 4200, first 2400 goes for this. First 24 goes for this. What is the balance left? When you deduct 1800, rest 1800 will go for SGST. Now, when you deduct, your final liability, CGST becomes 0 and your SGST becomes 600. So this is why I was saying this 600, whatever is GST net SGST liability is actually SGST. not CGST. Any more questions, please?
No, we were having see a 300 more GST, CGST, no, from Naveen that he has to pay. That will not compensate.
Naveen, no, that will not compensate. See, Naveen case is completely different. Forget about that. We are already done with it. See, Mr. Naveen is selling to Mr. Anand. Yes. Mr. Naveen is selling to Mr. Anand. Whatever output tax liability, input tax credit is being transacted between them. Now, Naveen is gone. Mr. Anand is selling to Mr. Lalchand.
No,
Between them,
correct.
again,
We
the
are
adjustment
trying to
comes in.
get the total. We are trying to get the total GST applicable to government, right? So that
No,
includes
no, no,
all
no, no,
three
no, no.
transactions.
No. We are just calculating how much of tax specific person has to pay as of now.
Achha, specific person as of now to correct. Yeah, Lal Chand, if you are saying, so it will be 1800 IGST, and that will